welcome to another episode of the Day Ticket Diaries. Today you join me down at Manor Farm Lakes. I actually came down last night. Currently I'm fishing on Becks Lake, and last night it was really productive. I was able to land several carp up to 26 pounds, so hopefully the action is going to continue for the cameras. I've just moved swims, and what the plan of action is, I'm going to do a night over on Becks Lake, and then tomorrow we're going to be heading over to the man's water, Booneys Lake, and try and catch a proper gem of the complex. But that's going to be tomorrow. For now, let's try and get a bit of action over here on Becks. Manor Farm Lakes is a set of 7 day ticket lakes on a complex ranging from easy to hard. It's a little bit different in terms of day tickets. The venues where I normally fish, like Bluebell, linear fisheries, they're quite big lakes, but the lakes down here are quite intimate and a little bit different rather than constantly casting out at range. I've started this session over on Becks Lake. I came down last night before the camera crew rocked up, and I was actually able to catch a few fish last night, but deep down I feel like I haven't sussed it yet. So I'm going to do another night over on this lake. Hopefully I can crack the code, learn a few things, so if you guys are coming down to Manor Farm Lakes, and more in particular Becks Lake, you'll be able to take a few of the things that I learn on this session, as to be honest, I am quite new to this lake, and you'll be able to apply that onto your session. I've jumped into this peg as it seems like the majority of the stock are in front of this peg. I've got the rods out, put a few dot spots over the area that I've picked. And to be honest, the fish are absolutely churning up the bottom. So hopefully they are carp, they're not nuisance fish, and we're going to be able to catch a couple before dark. The rods have been out for about 2 hours, maybe not even that long, an hour. And yeah, my head's gone a little bit. There's plenty of fish showing out there. And I'm gonna go back to what I caught on last night. Last night I put Diaries out with quite big snowmen. But I have been recommended using quite a small hook bait, but it hasn't worked and there's too many fish out there to ignore it. So I need to change something. Hopefully this is going to be the change that gets the bobbins bouncing. We can only try, because these rigs at the moment certainly aren't doing the damage. First of many, hopefully. I'm not going to waste any time whatsoever. They are fizzing on the spot. I've got no rods out on the spot. I need to get more rigs out there and catch more carp. I quickly got the rods out. And one thing that I've learned in the very short amount of time that I've been here is that it certainly feels like and looks like the fish feed and feeding spells. I've got that one in the net, I've hooked this one. The guy opposite's caught a couple. So certainly making sure that you get the rods back out there and you're prepared, certainly I think will increase your chances while fishing Becks. Number 2. And the other rod is ripped off again. Like I say, I've got 2 in the net. One's a small common, the other one is a proper, almost koi-like, a bit of a character. Not particularly big, but it looks like the other rod might have a fish, could be a liner. But yeah, that one's a proper little character, but they're not particularly big. So I am hoping, if we keep catching like this, we are going to get through to the better average size of the lake. Getting closer to the 20-pounder. It certainly seems that swapping over to them D-rigs made all the difference. As simply, as soon as I put them out, I started getting the bites. Deep down, I don't feel like I've cracked it yet. There's still time to improve. So I'll get this fish, slip back, make them changes, and hopefully we'll see the results fairly quickly. This is the rig that I use in 95% of my angling. It's a simple blowback rig. I've caught hundreds of carp on it in the past. It's just something, when I cast it out there, I feel like I've got a chance of a bite. However, on this session, it's been a little bit different. When I cast this out on the spot, it's been evident when the fish have been on the spot, they've been fizzing on the particle mix that I'm putting out there, they've been showing, but I haven't been getting any bites. So I needed to change something, and I've done something which is quite rare for me, and I took the blowback rig off and I replaced it with a day rig. Now, it's very simple, just like the blowback rig, but as soon as I put this rig out on the spot, I started landing carp. Now, there's a couple of different reasons why I feel that change made all the difference. As mentioned, I've been putting particle out there, and I feel like with a blowback rig or a braided hook link, there's a chance of that hook bait to move around, for the rig to get tangled and become ineffective. However, with a D-rig, since it's made out of fluorocarbon, it's quite a stiff material, and if a carp does pick it up or gets moved around by feeding carp, it's always going to reset itself, so eventually a carp's going to pick it up and get nailed. As soon as I swapped over to this rig, I did start getting a few bites, but deep down I feel like I could be getting bites a lot quicker. As hook bait on here, I've got a 15mm hardened hook bait topped off with a pink citrus pop-up. But what I'm going to do going into this evening is play around with the colour. I'm going to dip the hook bait in a few different liquids just to try and get them bites coming a little bit faster. Oy. Wonderful. First mirror of the session. Only a little one again, but shows the rig, shows the bait are working. Just got to hit repeat. And there we have it, the second fish of the evening and the second mirror of the session. To be honest, down here at Becks, the stock is mainly made up of commons, so to catch a couple of mirrors for the cameras, I'm more than happy. The fish that I've caught today, I've landed 5 in total. I have dropped a couple, but the average size has been quite small, and the average size in this lake is a few pounds bigger than this one here. So I'm going to keep at it throughout the night. Hopefully, them bobbins are going to carry on bouncing, and I'll give you guys an update in the morning. My session down here at Becks Lake so far, I've really enjoyed it. I've been able to land a few fish for the cameras. Yes, there haven't been monsters, but to be honest, I feel like I'm just being a little bit unlucky. I feel like there's a lot of the smaller average size down this end of the lake, as people elsewhere on the lake are certainly catching a lot bigger than what I've been landing. If I move down the other end of the lake, I'd certainly be catching a few bigger fish than what I've been landing down on this peg. But to be honest, there's multiple lakes on the complex, and I'm wanting to head over to Booneys as the next lake. I feel like, yes, there's a chance of nicking one more fish from this lake, but I'm starting to get itchy feet, so it won't be long before I reel them rods in and we head over to Booneys to try and catch something a little bit bigger. I finished packing up the gear over on Becks Lake, and I've made the short walk over the road over onto Booneys Lake. Now, this lake is a complete different contrast compared to the other lake in terms of size, in terms of the stock of the fish, and in terms of the environment where you're going to find these carp. Now, I've walked down to the shallow, weedier end of the lake. The wind's pushing nicely down here, and I've seen a few fish. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be the swim where I'm going to be doing the night. And looking at the forecast tomorrow, with the temperatures going up to mid to upper 20s, I can imagine the fish pushing down into this weed where it's going to be sheltered and nice and warm. So let's go and load the gear again, get a couple of rods in place and see if we can catch a Booneys Lake gem. On the Manor Farm Lakes complex, there's multiple lakes to choose from, each lake having their own different style of angling to suit what you want. On this session I've been fishing Becks Lake and Booneys Lake, and these two lakes are a complete contrast to each other. When I started the session over on Becks Lake, it's a smaller lake, however it's got a good stock of carp, around 400 to 450 carp, and it's more of a prolific runs water. The carp average size around 15 to 20 pounds. However, over here on Booneys Lake, it's a much larger lake. There's plenty more features in terms of islands, snags, weed beds. However, if you catch one or two, the chances of getting a 30 pounder really is there. Wasn't really happening over on the other side. There was quite a few fish there, but I feel like it's going to be this evening or throughout the hours of darkness I'll get a real good chance of catching on the bottom. So it's a little bit breezy on that side for surface fishing and a bit of stalking. So what I've done is I've reeled in the rods, I've took a lap around the lake, and at the complete opposite end on the far side I've been able to find a few fish. They're literally about a rod length out from the bank. There's maybe about 10-15 fish, a couple of them half decent. So I've just went and got the 10-foot dwarf rod. I've got a few rolls of bread and I'm going to give it half an hour or so over here. You never know, there might be a chance, there might not be. So I'm going to get everything set up here, create minimal disturbance, sneak down there, flick the bread out, and hopefully one of them is a little bit hungry. Oh, yes, that was exciting. Well, it just shows it's always worth having a walk around, even if there's fish in your peg, and just seeing if there's a slightly better opportunity. There was only about 10-15 fish here. There was certainly more fish down where I've just been fishing. But I just felt like a little move, a little change of tactic, just like we've done on Becks Lake. And it's resulted in our first Booneys Lake carp in the bottom of the net. Check that for a proper dark, cool looking character from Booneys Lake. I've been fishing over on this lake now for about 4 or 5 hours. To be honest, it's been a little bit slower than I was expecting. I've been able to find a few fish, but they haven't really been up for it. So I took a little lap, found some fish on the complete opposite end of the lake. I went back, grabbed my surface rod, a little bit of bread. I've came back round to where I found them fish, and after about 5 or 10 minutes, this one decided to pick up the bread, and we've been able to land this. Surprisingly, there's still a few more fish down there. I haven't spooked them, so I'll get it put back and try and nick one more before the evening. Yeah. No! 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 No, no, no! Ah! No. I'm gutted about that. Just a hook pull. Ah! Yeah, there was a common down there. Look, upper 20, maybe 30 pounds. It was tucked right under the weed, and I just waited a minute and it came out. I cast in front of it, it took it straight away. But unfortunately, hooks came back. Bit weirdy, barbless hooks, one of them things, you can't do much about it. Hopefully it hasn't spooked them away. It did make quite a lot of splashes, to be honest. Not the one. When freelining, I opted to use slow sinking bread rather than fishing on the surface. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I've done this. The first reason is I feel like when a lot of people are freelining bread or surface fishing, they're actually fishing on the surface. Now, the carp in Booneys, they are fished for quite a lot, the big old wary carp. And I felt like slow sinking bread, although other anglers will have used it in the past, it was just something a little bit different. Also, the way that the carp were behaving, some of them were sort of cruising around, but some of them were feeding in 2 to 3 foot on the bottom. And I felt like with slow sinking bread, I could sink it down on the bottom. And yes, I'm freelining, but I'd actually end up catching that carp off the deck. Yeah. Oh, she's not a bad fish. Get away from that weed. This time. Yes! Oh! I really did not know what the outcome of that fight was going to be. 1 minute it was down the margin, next minute it was reading me up. Hardest fighting carp I've ever hooked. But after a lot of graft, a lot of hard effort, just when I was thinking of giving up, we've got one in the net. This time a little bit bigger, and it is a chestnut dark common. Another fine example of what you can expect to catch down here at Booneys. The last few hours have been the most frustrating hours of fishing that I've ever experienced. Yes, I was able to catch that one earlier, but shortly after I lost a bit of a chunk. I've also struck out of a few, but with maximum effort, we've been able to land this one. Just over 20 pounds I'm gonna give myself, but like I said, we've worked hard, so I'm not gonna waste any time. I'm gonna put it back, get base camp set up for the night, get the rods flicked out, get a few hours kip, but hopefully at some point throughout the hours of darkness, something like this will come along and have a bit of a feed. For this Fishery in Focus, we're currently down at Manor Farm Lakes in Biggleswade. Now, a couple of things to note about this complex is it's made up of 7 day ticket lakes, however you've got to book before you visit the complex. Now this is something that's quite handy, is when you go to book onto your trip, you can have a look online, see how busy the lakes are, and one thing that I think is really good is there might be 16 tickets available for Becks Lake, however there's 30 pegs on the lake. So even if all the tickets do sell, there's plenty of room for each angler and you can move about, which is something that I find really handy, especially on busy day tickets. When you make the booking, you're sent a code, and when you arrive at the gate, you simply enter this code into the ticket machine, allowing you access into the complex. For this Fishery in Focus in particular, we're going to be looking at the largest lake on the complex, known as Booneys. Booneys Lake is a 16-acre lake with 30 swims located around this lake. Now this is actually the latest addition to the Manor Farm Lakes complex. It used to be a nature reserve, but back in 2011 the complex got the fishing rights for the lake. Now this makes the fishing a little bit interesting. The bailiffs have stocked approximately 200 carp into this lake, but you've sort of got that unknown mystery as there's the originals that were in here before fishing was allowed. This is something that when you arrive at a day ticket, normally you know the stock, but that's the little mysterious thing about this lake. When that rod goes, you don't know what's going to be on the end. And the best thing about the lake is since the water is gin clear, pretty much every single fish are chestnut browns, really dark, and they're all stunning when you get them out on the bank. What I'm going to do now, with the use of the iPad, is give you a tour around the lake, show you some of the more popular swims and some of the areas that I check out at different times of the year. Starting off in Peg 1. Peg 1 is the first peg that you'll come across when you're leaving the car park. It's out on a spit and it's sort of a little bit intimate, but you get a large expanse of water. Also when you're in the swim, although you've got open water out in front of you, down to your right in the margin there's a lovely reed bed and the fish love to go in there when the sun's out. Moving clockwise around the lake as you look at the map, you're then met with pegs 2 to 5. Now this is down the deeper end of the lake, average depths are around 5 to 7 feet, however there are some areas around these pegs that drop down to 17 feet. Now this makes it perfect in the winter months. With that depth of water it's going to hold its temperature and the carp tend to shoal around the area. One thing that I would certainly do in these pegs is use a marker float, as since the depths are so up and down, you want to make sure that you're going to be fishing on a bar or presentable area at all times. Moving further down this bank, you then met with peg 6. Peg 6, to be honest, is one of the more favoured pegs on the lake, and the reason for this is, just out in front of this peg, you met with 2 large islands. In between these 2 islands, there's a small channel which is sort of natural out of bounds. The fish love to spend time in there, and if you present your rigs perfectly on the edge of these islands, you can intercept the carp as the fish move in and out of this area. As you move further down this bank, you're then met with peg 8. Now, similar to 6, it's quite a popular swim on the lake, but for a couple of different reasons. In this swim, there's actually a couple of shallow gravel bars, and when the sun's out, since it's the shallower end of the lake, the fish love to move in this area, especially on top of those bars. Another spot to check out when you're fishing this peg is if you aim 14 wraps towards the corner of the island. There's a lovely gravel bed around 8-9 foot in depth, and again, as the fish sort of move around the large island, it can be a great area to pick off a few bites. As you make your way around the corner of this lake, pegs 9 and 10, this is the shallowest area of the lake and it's also the wadiest, but just like peg 8, when the sun's out, don't ignore this corner. Next up, pegs 11 to 15. These pegs are a little bit different in terms of you've got a gravel bar around halfway towards the island. Now, me personally, I wouldn't fish past this bar just because that bar can get quite weedy in the summer, and because of this, again, just like peg 6, there's sort of a natural out of bounds behind that bar and the fish know that they're safe there. It's also worth checking out the margins in this area when the sun's out, as the fish love to use this bank. You then met with pegs 19 to 25, 26. These are on the road bank, and there's a couple of things to take note from these pegs. Just like pegs 2 to 5, it's down the deeper end of the lake. You get a large expanse of open water, and yes, fishing out in the middle can be really productive, but from past experience, don't ignore the margins. There's a nice little shelf here with a bit of weed growth, and especially in the warmer months and in the cooler months, the fish do come in close. So definitely, if you're in them pegs, check them out. A couple of great things about these pegs as well is since it's on the road bank, you can park up behind your swim, unload the gear, and as well, since the pegs are fairly close together, if you and a few mates are coming down, it's the perfect area to have a social. The final peg that I'm going to mention is peg 30. Peg 30 is the first peg that you come across when you're driving down the road bank. Now, in this area, it's a nice secluded corner, but if you aim 11 3/4 wraps down towards the margin on your left, you'll see that there's actually quite a carby hole on the margin. Now, I have been told, I haven't fished that peg personally, but I have been told that area does the bigger fish. So if you're looking to catch possibly a 30 pounder or have a real good chance of catching a chunk, this could be the spot for you. Like all fishery in focuses, I've talked about a few of the pegs on the lake there, and hopefully you'll get a better insight on what to expect when you arrive at Booneys, but don't take this as gospel. Carp are wild animals. One day they might be in the shallows, one day they'll be in the deep. Just make sure that you have a good walk around and try and locate them carp. Good morning. Now, after yesterday on the other side doing that surface fishing, I went back to the van, grabbed my bed chair, a few other bits, and I made my way down here to the shallow bay, peg 8, and this was going to be where I was going to be doing the night. I'd seen a few fish here in the daylight hours, and once I got into the peg, it was pretty much last light. It was pitch black, so I tied a few fresh rigs. I found 2 spots, one of the spots being out towards the island, nice clean gravel, and the other spot is just down here in the edge. I got the rods out, heard a few fish crashing, and when I was falling asleep, I had that gut feeling it wasn't going to be long until I got a bite. And sure enough, 1 o'clock, half 1 in the morning, the island rod is absolutely screamed off. I was playing the fish for around 3-4 minutes. It did weed me up, but it came out, but eventually I did hook pull it, unfortunately. One of them things again, but I got the rod back out there, but for the rest of the night, it was fairly quiet. I've woke up this morning, the sun's starting to come up, and I think today we are going to have quite hot temperatures, so I'm going to give it a little bit longer in the swim, have my breakfast, and I think for the final couple of hours of the session, I'm going to grab the surface rod again and see if we can stalk one. This is the bait mix that I've been using over on Booneys. Now, it's pretty simple to be honest. I've done a few little tweaks and changes to the mix just to make the boilies stand out compared to other anglers. All it is simply 12 and 15mm Scopex squid boilies. Now, as you can see there, they're covered in liquid and covered in a few different things, and that's just to add extra pulling power. So all I done was I did 12 15mm Scopex squid into the water box. Next, I added the liquid bait soak onto the boilies, made sure to give them a good mix around so they're evenly coated, and then I added the final 2 ingredients. Now this was the Scopex squid cultured stick mix and the rock salt. Yes, it's pretty basic to be honest, but doing something a little bit different, I do feel like it could give you an edge. Now one thing that I do with these boilies, if you're fishing in deep water, 10 foot or deeper, is I just leave the box open in the sun for about an hour or so. And all that's going to do is the coating on the boilies, it's going to harden up. So when the boilies are sinking to the bottom, all the stuff that you've put on the boilies isn't going to be coming off on the drop. So once it's on the bottom, it's going to be breaking down and giving off plenty of attraction. I'm going to run through my 3 top tips for when you're fishing down here on the Manor Farm Lakes complex. Now the first one is, you want to make sure that you're prepared for any situation that you're faced with. Over on Becks Lake, they might be taking up the surface. Over on Booneys Lake, they might be fishing in the edge or out long, and you just want to make sure that you've got the correct gear for that approach. It might be a little bit annoying bringing everything in the kitchen sink, but you can leave it in the car. Just take what you need for that situation, making sure that you're fishing as effectively as possible. My second tip is for fishing over on Becks Lake more specifically. It's been evident on this session, as soon as that dot spot hits the water, it's a matter of minutes before the carp are in the area and having a feed. Now, due to the large stock of carp over there, they really do travel around in large shoals, and it can take a matter of minutes before they've cleared out the bait. And I feel like it's important to use flakes, small seed bits like that, just to help hold the fish in the area for a little bit longer. My third and final tip is for when you're fishing over on Booneys Lake. Now, the environment in this lake is quite weedy, and the last thing that you want to be doing is playing a fish with the lead still attached to the rig. So make sure that you drop the lead. It's going to avoid hook pulls, especially with the barbless rule, the weed, and just dropping the lead will make sure that you get them carp in the bottom of the net. Now I've packed up the gear. I just thought I'd have one little walk just to the peg to my left, peg 9. There's a few fish there chilling in the weed. They didn't seem really that interested. And literally just when I was giving up and we were going to go on the other side, I seen one, casted it, and she took it. And she's always a little bit hairy in the weed, but keeping steady pressure, a nice strong hook and strong main line, it's meant we've been able to land the carp safely, and we've got one to end the session. It's always nice to end a session with a fish, especially when they look just like this. I packed up the gear and I made the massive walk with the surface rod to the peg next door. There was a few fish in the weed. To be honest, I didn't really think they were up for feeding, and it was my final cast basically, and if it didn't take it, I was gonna leave. I cast in front of this one, and she was more than up for a bit of bread. Yeah, I've really enjoyed my session down at the Manor Farm Lakes complex. Yes, we haven't caught one of the true monsters of this complex, but that gives me the perfect excuse to come down here again.